The Pacific Northwest is one of the world's most abundant and diverse farming areas, giving local chefs rich, vibrant seasonal produce. We're going into the kitchens of 5 of Portland's top chefs to see how they pair the local bounty with their personal stories to create their signature dishes. Behind the dish, Portland. Choose any dish or cuisine, and chances are Portland has it covered. From Korean hot pot to Russian pelmini, flame-grilled Argentinian pork chops to Thai chicken and rice, you can eat food from all over the world without leaving the Rose City. Chef Gregory Gourdet of Departure tours the world looking for culinary inspiration to bring back to Portland, where he creates thoughtful, modern Asian food.
Our hot pot brings together traditional Korean flavors with local Portland ingredients. It highlights bacon that is grown and made in Oregon with beautiful gochujang that we import from South Korea. So you see this really great combination. My name is Gregory Gourdet, and I am the executive chef of Departure here in Portland, Oregon. Departure is a modern Asian restaurant. We are very much inspired by all of Asia, its cooking traditions, its iconic ingredients, as well as the bounty of the Pacific Northwest. While I was studying at the CIA, the Culinary Institute of America, I had an internship at Jean-Georges. Cooking there is where I was first exposed to true Asian flavors. A lot of those Asian flavors had a very strong parallel to my Haitian upbringing. This hot pot is truly a combination of techniques I've learned at Jean-Georges and truly what Departure is today, Asian flavors and seasonal ingredients from here in Portland. Our hot pot starts with a broth made from chicken stock and kombu seaweed. Traditionally, this stew is made with water, but I wanted to add a little bit more richness and a little bit more umami to the dish. We let it simmer gently for 30 minutes to really extract that umami from that kombu and season that stock. We remove the kombu and reserve the stock. We'll use the stock to make the stew in a little bit. We serve the hot pot with short grain rice to absorb all those delicious flavors in the broth. The first thing we do is wash the rice to get rid of all that extra starch. After that, we'll add some cool water, rub it gently until the water runs clear. We add the rice to the pot, add the water. Once it's at a boil, reduce the heat and cook it about 15 minutes until it's nice and fluffy. This hot pot is all about developing flavor. We cook all the ingredients in the same pot, so you want to make sure to really caramelize and develop all those flavors individually to have them marry really well at the end. The first thing we do is warm up our stone bowl to extremely high heat. Once it's almost smoking, add your grapeseed oil and get that hot as well. The next step is to add your bacon. We're caramelizing the bacon to get some really great, delicious bacon flavor out of it. We'll add mushrooms and caramelize those just a bit until they're just starting to get golden. Next, we'll add onions, garlic, and jalapeno. We're just cooking until we get the edges soft and just a touch caramelized to really develop the flavors of these individual ingredients. We add daikon for a little vegetable crunch, and then we introduce gochujang. Gochujang is a spicy, funky, fermented bean paste from Korea. It'll add beautiful depth and richness to the final broth. We'll add gochugaru. Gochugaru is Korean chili. It's a little spicy, a little bit sweet, and will actually give the broth some body. We'll add our flavored stock from earlier, which will add depth and umami to our finished product. Once our stock is simmering, we'll add kimchi. The kimchi is going to give it lots of great acid and lots of great crunch. We'll start adding the final layers to our dish, and it's important to work very quickly with these next 2 ingredients. We'll add our shrimp, making sure that your soup is at a rolling boil, and finish off with a raw egg. You want to make sure that your shrimp are well dispersed in the broth, and at the same time, pour hot broth over the egg to make sure that it gets cooked just to medium. Once the shrimp is just cooked through and the egg is just set, we take the hot pot off the stove and plate it. To add final little bits of flavor and umami, we finish with nori that is cut into julienne and toasted nutty sesame seeds. We'll serve it with steamed white rice, and here you have Departure's bacon, shrimp, kimchi hot pot. This hot pot is really special to me because it really showcases some of my favorite Korean flavors and one of my favorite countries. There is a foundation of chilies and developing flavors, and those both speak to my Haitian heritage and my formative years at Jean-Georges. It really honors and respects traditional Asian ingredients with the bounty that Portland has to offer.
Next, we jump from Korea to Russia by simply crossing the Willamette River. At Kachka Restaurant, Chef Bonnie Morales makes a childhood favorite, a take on one of the earliest frozen foods, the Russian pelmini. At her Russian restaurant, Kachka, Chef Bonnie Morales serves up food from the former Soviet Union, reminiscent of her childhood and family, but updated and made with vibrant, aromatic flavors.
The lamb pelmeni really celebrate all the different cultures that came out of the former Soviet Union. Pelmeni typically are made with pork, beef, and veal. That's delicious, and we love those. But this was a fun little riff. We're not really messing with the idea at all, but just turning the ingredients on their head a little bit. I'm Bonnie Morales, chef owner of Kachka Restaurant in Portland, Oregon. My parents immigrated from the former Soviet Union in 1980, and the food we do here is based on the things I grew up eating. A lot of the food that we make here focuses on preservation, salting, curing, pickling, and we do a lot of that in-house, which is really fun. Things like pelmeni that we're making today are one of the original frozen foods. So interesting, the origins coming from Siberia. People would get together, their family, and shape them by hand and throw each one into the snow as they go, freezing them through the winter, which obviously in Siberia is never ending. They're also insanely delicious, and it's just another example of preserving that people don't always think about. The lamb pelmeni are really a mashup of the ingredients and dishes from my childhood with the techniques that I like to use today. The lamb pelmeni really reflects what we do at Kachka because they're super traditional and really done the way that they've always been done, but with just little subtle changes. First thing we do is finely grate an onion, and then we add the onion, ice water, and salts, as well as the lamb into a mixer. You're gonna mix it with a paddle until it starts to come together. You're looking to emulsify it so that you end up with a really juicy filling. Ajika is a Georgian spicy sauce or paste, depending on the consistency. Start by getting a pan hot to toast spices, throw in the dill, coriander, fenugreek, and cumin, and let them go until they start to become aromatic or hot to the touch, if you're okay with getting your hand in the pan. Once they're nice and toasty and the oils are starting to release, transfer to a spice grinder and grind till they're a nice fine powder so that the finished ajika isn't chewy from the seeds. Once those spices are nice and ground, throw them into the food processor and add the rest of the ingredients to make the ajika. Then you just blend everything together till it's a nice smooth consistency. You might need to turn it off and scrape down the sides a couple of times. Once everything is blended together, now you have ajika, and you can use that as its own condiment. But here we're going to go ahead and turn it into a compound butter by adding some softened butter to the mix as well. We mix the butter in until it's all incorporated. You want it to be nice and smooth and sort of a soft orange color. You don't want it to mix for too long because your butter can get warm and break. We use a pelmenitsa mold to make our pelmeni, which is super classic. You can make them by hand, but I think that making them this way yields the best dumpling. First thing you want to do is make sure to flour the table and the mold really generously. We use a 2-pass dough sheeter for rolling out our dough. Makes it much more consistent, especially when you're making thousands of dumplings. Place your rolled out dough on top of the pelmenitsa molds, and then either with a roller or with your hands lightly impress so that the shape of the mold comes through a little bit so you know where you're going. We're gonna add the filling to the dumplings using a pastry bag and a spoon. This is just an efficient way to do it. You can always just use 2 spoons or your hands or whatever you feel comfortable with. Once you have all the 37 spots filled, then you're gonna get another piece of dough going and roll it out and place it on top. After your second sheet's on top, grab your rolling pin and roll it out. That action presses down on the hexagon shape underneath, essentially cutting the dough all the way through. The moment of truth, we flip out the dumplings onto a table or a tray and then transfer them into the freezer on a parchment-lined sheet tray. We freeze the dumplings for a number of reasons. They cook much more evenly that way. The cooked dumpling is more attractive looking, and it makes it something that you can do in large quantity and have for later. Once the dumplings are frozen through, we portion them out and then throw them in the pasta cooker to boil them. While they're boiling, we're gonna prepare the sauce. In a bowl, combine the ajika butter, a splash of distilled white vinegar, and some salt. Once the dumplings are ready, give them a shake and throw them into the bowl with the waiting ingredients. You're gonna wanna quickly mix together everything. That action actually creates sauce. You're taking the water that's still clinging to the outside of the dumplings and emulsifying it with the butter and the vinegar and the salt. Once each pelmeni is evenly coated, we're gonna move them into a pretty bowl and garnish with some smetana. Smetana is the Russian word for sour cream. We culture ours here using specific kinds of Eastern European cultures. That gives it a really nice richness and tang. We finish it off with fresh cilantro and mint. There you have it, our lamb pelmeni with achika butter. When you bite into the lamb pelmeni, you get the really juicy, meaty filling with the really supple, slippery dough around it. And all of it is enrobed in this really almost exotic butter sauce. There's the cilantro and the mint that adds a nice freshness, and then the creaminess of the smetana. I love learning more about my culture, and I'm always looking to explore more and always learning and building on what I've already learned. And there's just so much depth to it. The lamb pelmeni really embodies everything that I love about Russian food and everything that I loved about the food I ate in my childhood.
Coming up, this husband and wife team at one of Portland's most exciting restaurants, Ox, share their Argentinian-inspired sweet and savory pork chop. At their restaurant Ox, James Beard award-winning husband and wife team, Greg Denton and Gabrielle Quinones Denton, draw inspiration from each of their backgrounds to create their Argentinian maple brine pork chop, cooked over an open flame and served with heirloom carrots.
When it comes to the things that I grew up when I was a kid, you know, shake and bake pork chops.
Those really skinny pork chops that you fry to death, but they're still really delicious, and you gnaw on the bone until there's nothing left.
I think that's, to me, the pork chop represents my childhood. And so I'm really, really happy when we were able to have this open fire, and the pork chop was one of the first things that we put on it. I'm Greg Denton.
I'm Gabrielle Quinones Denton, and we are the chefs and owners of Ox Restaurant in Portland, Oregon. We'd been cooking together, working together for about a year and a half or so, when we realized that we're actually falling in love. And not long after that, I think the dreams of what we could do together started to come about. And I think we always knew after cooking over a wood-fired grill, where Greg actually trained me, we knew that that would always be an important component of our future restaurant.
We always also wanted to represent your heritage of South America in our first restaurant.
I think a lot of people come to Ox, they think about Argentinian steak and that tradition, the chimichurri, and we really love that the pork chop holds its own on our menu.
We have a grilled maple brine pork chop.
Grade B maple syrup runs in Greg's veins. It is his sweetener of choice. So anytime we're trying to balance a dish, we tend to go for the maple.
We brine it for 24 to 48 hours. The reason why we brine it for so long is because it's just a really big pork chop. After we remove it from the brine, pat it dry, we season it. We season it with olive oil first, and then we add kosher salt and black pepper. We like to season not just on the bottom and just not on the top, but we like to season all the way around because we feel like a large piece of meat like that can handle a little bit more salt. Plus, those little bits that are a little bit too salty and a little bit too peppery, to me, those are my favorite parts of the meat. To prepare the grill, we needed to get a little bit hotter of a heat because we needed something that was gonna sear the pork chop, give that nice caramelization, as well as hold a fire for a longer period of time. When we get the grill nice and hot, we're gonna put that pork chop on the grill. It's gonna start to cook. We start with putting the largest width side of the pork chop down. We're gonna grill that for about 5 to 8 minutes, flip it over, and we're gonna grill that side for another 5 to 8 minutes. And then we're gonna stack it up on the bone side and get that bone nice and hot. You know, you get that bone nice and hot, that it's gonna cook through the meat a lot better. Once it's cooked through, you're gonna wanna pull it off the heat, let it rest, but don't let it rest too long where it cools off all the way. One of the great pleasures of eating a big piece of meat like this is to eat a hot piece of meat.
We are very fortunate to get some of the best carrots in the country here.
The pork chop mixed with the sweet maple of the carrots, it's just something that really, really balances. We're gonna take water and butter and maple syrup and combine that in a pan. We're then gonna put that over heat and start to melt that. We'll get that nice and hot and it'll start to boil. Then we'll add our carrot. When we add our carrot, we'll also add a little bit of seasoning. Then we'll add our salt and a little bit of white pepper. We then cover it. The reason why we cover the carrots is so that the carrots will release their natural liquid. And when you release that natural liquid, you'll see that they'll get really watery. That's when you're gonna wanna remove the top. And then that's when you reduce that carrot maple butter combination. And that is what the magic is in glazed carrots. When the carrots are done, the carrots are gonna be soft and tender, not mushy. They'll have a glaze on them that won't fall off very immediately. These two dishes at Ox come a la carte, but we think they're a perfect match. The first thing that we do to plate this is that we put down about a dozen carrots. We then put the pork chop down on top of it. We're gonna garnish it with little dollops of chev, or the goat cheese, around, truffle pistachios, evenly distributing around the plate. To finish the dish, we're gonna garnish the plate with tarragon leaves, flaked sea salt, maple syrup, and olive oil. And there it is. That's our maple brine pork chop and maple glazed carrots. When you get this dish, you're gonna be really satisfied with the smokiness, the saltiness, the tenderness of the pork. That on top of these carrots that are tender and beautiful, that have this really nice crunch from the salted pistachio, the herbal note from the tarragon, and then the creaminess and the acidity of the goat cheese. The pork chop and the carrot is always special because it brings back those memories from when you're a child of eating a really delicious cut of meat, and it satisfies you on all levels.
It's also something that we hold very dearly to our hearts because it's a style of cooking that we've really just kind of embarked on together and kind of gone deeper into it from basically the moment that we met.
The pork chop and the carrots definitely capture the story of Ox. It's two items that are really good on their own, but by adding a few components here and there, it brings it up to a whole new level.
From brick and mortars to pop-ups, Portland chefs create delicious dishes in a wide variety of locations, none more famous than downtown's food carts. It was here that chef Nong Putsunquathana started serving her legendary khao man gai. She wanted to perfect one simple dish with only the best ingredients. At Nong's khao man gai, her Thai chicken and rice has become one of Portland's culinary staples.
It makes sense to me to serve only one dish. You put all your heart and soul into it. So I made that idea happen with khao man gai. Khao man gai is Thai version of chicken and rice. Where I grew up in Bangkok, it's a common food, just like pizza in United States. Hi, I'm Nong Putsunquathana. I'm chef and owner of Nong's khao man gai in Portland, Oregon. In Bangkok, Thailand, street food is everywhere and everyone do it like one thing or two things, but they do it really good. When you go to the market, you have a big competition. So it has to be really good to stand out. I feel that I can make that happen with khao man gai idea. Just make it one dish and make it really good. Nong's khao man gai is Nong's, which is me, and I'm making chicken and rice. So it's Nong chicken and rice. You have to start from buy the best chicken. We use a kosher race and it's weighed about 4 to 5 pounds per bird. First, we add water into the large pot. Then you add salt, sugar, garlic, ginger, and pandan leaves. Pandan leaves add some kind of vanilla aromatic and is common use in Thai cooking. Once the ingredient is boiled together, we add the chicken. You simmer the chicken for 35 minutes to keep the chicken flavor to be sweet and not dry. The rice that I use at Nong's is Thai jasmine rice, and it's the rice that I will serve to my friend and family. The first thing you do in a rice cooker, you add the chicken fat, and you add garlic, shallots, ginger, galangal, and pandan leaves. Mix the rice together with the aromatic fat and it will make the rice flavorful. Add the chicken stock to the rice, and the key is to add the stock when it's really hot. Stir the rice and the broth together, and then you let it cook. When the rice is cooked, it will be light and fluffy, and then it will be ready to serve. The soup is a balance of the khao man gai all together. The first thing we do is we add the chicken broth to the pot. We bring it to the boil and we add Chinese winter squash. Chinese winter squash will absorb all the chicken flavor. It's very light, so it will balance the chicken and rice and the sauce all together. Cook it for about 15 minutes and then season with the soy sauce and white pepper. Once the soup is finished, everything is ready to be served. Khao man gai is about the balance of the chicken, rice, and the soup, and our special sauce. In plating, we start with the rice. It's about 1 ounce of rice. Next, you debone the chicken. We cook the chicken whole because we want the broth to be flavored. Also, you don't want the chicken to be dry. We add the cucumber and cilantro. We serve it with our special khao man gai sauce. The sauce is like flavor bomb to the chicken and made the dish come together. Finally, we serve it with the soup and we top the soup with some green onions. There you have it. It's our khao man gai. I think what makes my version of khao man gai unique is we try to use the best ingredient available. The chicken is very soft and juicy, and then the rice has some aromatic depth to it. Our special sauce balances the whole dish together. Khao man gai is very special to me because I put all my heart and soul into it. I believe that it's as good as it gets in Thailand, and I'm very proud of it.